2, 1. Good evening and or afternoon. Today is Tuesday, March 17th, 2020. I'm Brach Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this is a special episode of Stumbling Block. And Peter, why don't you tell us what is special about this episode?
Well, first off, it's St. Patrick's Day, so that's always special to me. But this, because of how fast news and things like that is coming in, how fast things are developing with the whole COVID-19 situation, we don't actually know how to live stream this podcast, so we're going to do the next best thing, which is as soon as we're done recording it, I'm going to slap our beginning and end on it and upload it. Pretty much unedited.
We even have a beginning and end?
Yeah, we have the little theme song at the beginning, and then I thank people at the end, and...
Oh, so I never hear that. I only hear the rough version.
Yeah, you only hear the rough version, which doesn't have that on it yet, so... But yeah.
Yeah, so this is a new way of doing things for us. You're getting us... Can I use the word uncensored?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting us uncensored, but not totally uncensored, if you will. And we'll see what happens. And who knows, maybe some more special episodes like this will follow.
Yeah. And, apologies, of course, for any sound issues. We're both on our home internet connections, which with people doing the social distancing thing is under more load than normal. So Kate's working from home today. Sam's home from school today on his iPad and stuff, and I'm doing this. Brock, you're on a shared internet connection.
And I'm 4,000 miles away.
Yeah, and you're on a shared internet connection with whoever else is holed up in the shift.
Not very many people, actually. I'm one of the only people left here, but that's because largely I have nowhere else to go, and the Lutheran Church of Württemberg is so nice that they are not kicking me out on the streets of Tübingen for a month, which is very kind.
That is very kind of them.
Yeah, no, it's life as I know it. In, as I call Tübingen, Reformation Theology Heaven has ended.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, by the way, that's our lives around the world. And it's scary.
It is. I mean, especially so most of us in my family are part of what's called the at-risk population, having some form of long-term illness that causes us to be immunocompromised.
I didn't actually know that you were in that category.
Yeah, well, I'm asthmatic and diabetic.
I knew you were diabetic, but I didn't know you were asthmatic, and I didn't know that diabetes put you at risk.
Apparently it does. It's among the list. And being on blood thinners puts you in risk, too, which Kate is on blood thinners.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Not directed at Kate, directed at this godforsaken virus.
Right.
Have you ever lived through a health epidemic before, Peter?
Not to this extent. I mean, obviously there was SARS, and I think the closest I've come through is West Nile virus, which was a thing in the northern Midwest when we were kids.
Yeah, but West Nile, wasn't that like that was before SARS, wasn't it? Or
It was.
after?
It was back in the 90s. SARS was in the mid-2000s.
All right, I'm going to take your word on it. We don't have time for me to pull up articles and like that like we sometimes do.
Right.
I remember West Nile. I remember SARS. I don't remember the chronology. Right. One of the blessed things about getting older is the chronology from the past disappears a little bit.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this is a good thing. But this one, maybe in previous crises, just because I'm a little younger than you, maybe I was too young. Don't mind me, Peter. I'm obsessively cleaning my glasses again.
No, that's fine.
It always happens to me that I get something on them and then I can't see. I think I was just too young to really appreciate the effect of a national or global health crisis.
Well, and SARS didn't really hit the U.S. in a way it hit other places. Like we didn't have to do the social distance thing. It just
I'm
really
so tired of that word. Social distancing is the new buzzword.
it is, but it's because no one wants to use the Q word.
What's the Q word?
Quarantine.
I have a dear friend who's on quarantine in the moment. Actually, not with COVID-19, but he was skiing in Austria, and that place got to be high risk and is on quarantine now.
Yep.
Um, okay, so when people say social distancing is a euphemism for quarantining,
Kind of.
I didn't make that connection.
It's a lesser form of quarantining.
Okay. So I wasn't making that connection, and I have been obsessively reading the New York Times to the point where I'm scared. I'm downright scared. Um, Not so much for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared for the people I love, and I'm thinking more, businesses, the economic losses. That worship services, Chancellor Dr. Angela Merkel suspended all worship services.
Right, and they have in a lot of places in the United States too. Here in Wisconsin, we're not allowed to have assemblies of greater than 50 people.
Yeah, and so of course the church services or the synagogue or mosque or whatever get lopped into that. I have a real issue with that. I was hoping that could be the theological direction of where we go today. Just I'd like to press you a little bit on your thoughts of either alternative worship or abstaining from worship.
Right.
I have to say myself, for the last couple of weeks, I have not gone to church because where I go in Tübingen at the Stiftskirche just down the street here. It's a substantial older population, and I decided that I just didn't want to put anyone at risk, because this I really want to say a profanity toward this disease, but I'll be nice for on the air. This dumb disease, you could be sick and not show symptoms. So
Right.
I've been cautious about that. But what I've done is I just haven't gone to church. I haven't done any kind of digital church or anything.
Right.
But but the last time Jewish services were suspended in Germany, guess when that was?
I would say sometime in the 30s.
Yeah, And so it's a little problematic, I'm thinking. I'm not so much even thinking about the Christians at the moment.
Yeah.
Although I understand the safety precautions, and it just hit. It hit us in Tübingen, at least. As a university, it hit us on Thursday.
Right. By Thursday, we were already talking about whether or not schools were going to be closed here.
We were closing them by Thursday.
Right. Well, yeah, but for how we were talking about for how long? So
yeah. Well, yeah, they were talking about that too, and I don't quite know because this is a state institution and actually funded by the state, unlike American state institutions. There are so many different details and chains of command versus as to who issues the orders, right? So it's interesting for me to be in the middle of all this and see where it happens. But I think for us on this podcast, it's interesting to talk about theology and worship in the midst of Corona.
Right. Well, and it ties in also to sort of my journey for myself and my own healing and things like that.
How so?
My separation of worship and liturgy from the church setting. Because I so highly and deeply value liturgy and worship, but currently have difficulty going into the church setting.
So, at the risk of giving a CPE answer, and for our listeners who are not either pastors or trained in programs that required this. CPE is a chaplaincy program that you're often required to do it. Well, not often. You are required to do it if you're a Lutheran, but in other denominations required. It's recommended rather. It's a 3-month intensive ministry experience, most times in a hospital, but now I guess I'm seeing that you can do it other places as well. And one of the famous things that's said in CPE sessions where all the chaplains get together with their supervisor and, they start saying, tell me more about that. So
Unpack
Peter,
that for me.
tell me more about that. What? Yeah, unpack that for me. Peter, unpack that for me.
Well, worship doesn't have to happen at church.
Mm-hmm.
Worship can happen anywhere. It can be in the little things. It can be in our daily lives. It can be, all kinds of places. And so, some churches have been doing digital, live streaming via Facebook Live or YouTube or things like that for people to join in together if they want. I think that's been really good. Some churches have been just sort of publishing devotionals for people to do at home. I think that's a really good idea. Both of those are really great ways to do worship at home. I think it'd be more interesting if some churches were setting up like Discord servers or something like that. For people to communicate and to gather together through, which just gave me a thought. I think, at least for the duration of COVID-19, I'm going to open up our Discord server to whoever wants to come join it and chat on it. So that
I don't know what a Discord server. I don't know what a Discord server is. So whomever of our listeners would like to join whatever that is, have at it and have a lovely time. If I'm not participating, it's just because I'm technologically ignorant.
Yep. That's okay.
I didn't even know we had a Discord server.
Yeah.
But this is why you're the producer and I'm just the director.
Yep.
Oh no, you told me about that because you wanted me to join it and I never did it because I still can't figure out what it is, Peter.
You need to download the application Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can create an account and then you can join a Discord server, which is like a chat room.
Okay, all right. So that's then for our listeners and me, how to get part of this Discord chat if you'd like. And all right, I'll look into it and maybe we'll have some good discussions on there.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna post it on our Facebook right now while I'm talking.
Oh wow, this really is the next closest thing to live stream.
Yep.
You remember? I don't know if you know this. Jazz albums often did recordings in one take.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what we're doing now. We're doing this in one take. We're not editing anything. It's a very interesting experience. One of my favorite singers is an Australian pop singer named Tina Arena. She did a cover album about 13 years ago now. No, 12 years ago now. And it was like standards, like the Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga album, which I never heard, but I know of.
Yeah.
Like jazz and maybe even a little bit of musical theater stuff. Well, she did one of these with a full orchestra in London, and she was doing it in one take. And there's something creative and vital about that kind of music making or that kind of production that forces you to think on your feet in the way that an editing room or a cutting booth, I guess they call it, right? Yep. Isn't that what they call it? Cutting room floor, doesn't force you to do. It also runs the risk of being incoherent, and so I hope we're not incoherent here.
I don't usually edit us that
But
much. I don't usually do a lot of editing to us. Usually just cutting out some spaces and things like that that are partially generated due to the lag of us being however many thousands of miles apart.
oh, well, that makes me feel better. See, I never can tell. You just make us sound good, so.
That's the hope.
So we might not sound as good today, in other words.
Probably not, but we'll get it out there.
We'll get it out there. Amen. And sometimes, I think it was Dolores Williams who said you got to get as many ideas out there as possible. Actually, it was Dolores Williams who said that, although she was talking about the racism of the publishing industry at the point. But she's right. You often just have to go for it. It's a great book, by the way. Have you read that, Peter? Sisters in the Wilderness by Dolores Williams?
I have not read that book.
Okay. Have you heard of her?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, very, very compelling book where she challenges theology to begin seriously with the experiences of black women and not to assume that the black liberation theology of James Cone was speaking for all African Americans. So she was really a challenge for James Cone.
Right.
But to return to the worship question, so you are saying that worship is broader than in church.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do with the sacraments at that point and the proclamation of the word?
Well, I think people are doing the proclamation of the word via... That's mostly what people are doing, is giving people sermons or reflections, things like that, which I think is great. That's a great way to do that. But I also think that we can do proclamation of the word via text, through written reflections and devotions that people can absorb at any time. I think that the sacrament of Eucharist is a grace given to us that I think now is an opportunity to make sure that we don't turn it into a law.
To use the CPE phrase, say more about that.
Well, we don't need to feel guilty right now about not doing the Eucharist because of this situation of contagion and pandemic. It's okay to refrain from the Eucharist right now.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the church in Baden-Württemberg set out a statement recommending that very well. I think it was stronger than recommending. I think they were saying no Lord's Supper for the next however many weeks.
Right.
So you don't think that the Lord's Supper should be celebrated and then just watched on live stream or something?
I'm not sure how you do that. It's such a communal act that I'm not sure how you do that without a body of people there to do it. So I think, and again, if you want it, if you need it to be part of what's going on in your life, in your small little community, I believe deeply in the priesthood of all believers. So
you've taken up the pietist claim there.
I'm a mixed bag, man.
I'm teasing you.
I know. But grab some bread, grab some wine, say the words of institution, and chow down.
Ooh. That is a bit too far for me.
Yeah.
I don't think that this defines the emergency situation of non-ordained persons presiding, or even ordained persons presiding outside of specific contexts.
I don't think that requires an emergency situation.
Oh, I absolutely do. Because otherwise you have utter chaos in the church.
Donatism.
It's not donatism because it's nothing about who's worthy to preside. Anybody can preside. That doesn't mean anybody should preside.
I agree with that. I agree with anybody can preside. That doesn't mean anybody should preside. But I don't know, in the current situation, if you are a person who so deeply needs that and doesn't have access to it,
seek out an ordained pastor.
No. I don't think break the social distancing for that. I think that's enough. That cry of your heart is enough call for me, at least in this situation, for you to self-administer.
But self-administer gets very close to the notion of private masses.
Right. I agree, but I don't have a better solution right now.
Sorry, you don't have a what?
A better solution right now.
Well, I've got one for you, and it originates, as far as I know, in the Lutheran Orthodox tradition, and that is reading the words of institution from the scriptures, either alone or in a group. That part doesn't matter. But reading them and to hear the consolation of those words.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that the words of institution need to be part of it.
That to me sounds much more... no, I'm not talking about with elements. I'm talking about just reading the words of institution.
Without elements.
Correct.
Fair enough.
Because the sacrament is meant for embodied worshiping community. So this way, you have that proclamation. This is my body given for you. You hear in the mystical sense, I think, of the word hear, the words of Jesus there spoken at the Last Supper, and you receive the consolation because you know that Christ is for you.
Yeah.
Then there is no, there is no hint of either pietism or, well, actually, this is in a sense a little bit of pietism, but there's no hint of enthusiasm with what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's still the external word.
I think I can get behind that. I also just realized I should probably apologize. Some people probably heard a clicking noise in the background for a little bit there. I'm realizing the things of mine that I do that I normally edit out.
I didn't hear it, so I didn't know you were clicking.
Which is, I'm usually fiddling with something in my hand, and right now it happens to be a lockback knife.
Okay, that is scary.
Why?
Because if I say something wrong, are you going to, throw that through my computer screen or something?
No. I would never do that to my computer.
You say that now.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. So I'm very... This is not a matter of hierarchies. But it is a matter of not causing chaos surrounding the sacraments.
Mm-hmm.
So I have presided over the Lord's Supper as a non-ordained person occasionally.
Okay.
When I was on my internship, there were specific circumstances. Matter of fact, it involved me being in a nursing home, and it was always with the bishop's dispensation.
Right.
So, in other words, it wasn't just me going off and saying, well, it's a priesthood of all believers, so I can do this. It was, this is a specific context. The appropriate people know about it, and it is only in this particular circumstance. That, I think, is a healthier solution to avoiding the chaos of enthusiasm. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm just thinking.
Okay. I have to ask that, with our 4,000 miles internet connection, or however many thousand miles we are away.
Right. So I get what you're saying. again, I'm a little more radical on this point, just for various reasons, including some of what's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I still think I ought to be able to administer the sacraments.
Well, I think you can in emergency situations. Anybody, it's sure. I somehow touched my glasses, not touching my face, but touching my glasses, and making me need to clean them again.
But I think all it in a gathering of people, I think I could maybe see not self-administering. That's probably a step too far.
Mm.
But in a gathering of people, if they elect among themselves a person to administer the sacraments,
That's fine. That's something different.
okay.
Yeah, that's straight out of Luther's Babylonian Captivity of the Church, what you're saying there.
Right. But so then, if there's a group of us who have gathered together, decide we want to do Eucharist, we don't have a priest among us, we just elect among us a person to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it would need to be a little more than we decide to do the Eucharist. I think there would need to be a little more pressing circumstances than we just decide to do it, so we're going to do it.
Why?
You put the Catholicity of the Church at risk when you do that.
I'm not sure I 100% agree with that.
That's interesting because you're the one usually making the Catholicity arguments and I'm usually the radical.
I know, right?
Interesting how we've switched sides.
Again, with the whole, like, me wanting to still be able to preside, like, when I go on a camping trip with friends or things like that.
I wouldn't put the camping trip under the same definition. I would put this, for instance, where I would say that what this argument is valid is in times like now with this coronavirus. That's where I think the emergency circumstances really could come to play, particularly with people who are dying.
Right.
That's where I think you have the notion of emergency circumstance, but it would be even when I had done this in a nursing home, I think now, I'm not sure I would do it. I'm not sure that qualifies as an emergency. When there are so many ordained people around who exercise that office.
Right. See, for me, one of the things I'm currently struggling with is my call versus the church hierarchy.
Right. And that's where it gets tricky. And I don't know that there are any clear-cut answers.
Right. Because I still, like, deeply believe that I am called to ministry of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not currently recognized by the ELCA.
Well, first, ministry can be defined quite broadly. Number one, right?
Right. I mean ministry of word and sacrament.
Well, now that's a different question. And that then becomes a question of denominational polity and policy,
right?
As opposed to the theological question, which is the way I was tackling the issue.
Well, but you can't really talk about one without talking about the other, because at least not for me. Because then one has to address the issue of has my ordination been actually rescinded?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously depends on the theology of ordination, and I'm not sure the American Lutherans have solved that because of it's a mix of understandings combining various different European traditions.
Right. So according to the ELCA right now, I cannot preside over the table.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I can't either.
I know, but you never got ordained.
That's true. I never did get ordained.
And I also disagree with that. I think
That I never.
No, well, that you should be able to preside over the table.
Me?
Yeah.
But I'm not ordained.
I don't think it requires. I think. I don't think it. I don't know that it requires ordination.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Ordination is not the. It's not like some magic trick that now you get to do it. The ordination is the public affirmation and the public call to do it, and
right.
So it's a good order argument, if anything. Melanchthon's famous good order stuff. That he gets from, I can't remember. My Reformation history brain is not working tonight, I'm afraid, which is kind of ironic. But it's a notion of good order. It's not, certainly not for Lutherans. It's not an ontological change, right? That's some of the fuss around the notion of the historic episcopate. When about 20 years ago, 20 years ago now, when the American Lutherans joined with the Episcopalians, and there was that whole fight over, can we do this, because the Episcopalians have a different understanding of what it is to be a bishop. Interestingly enough, by the way, the German Lutherans, as far as I know, do not have apostolic succession, or i.e. the historic episcopate. And that certainly makes more sense to me theologically, but I don't think it needs to be church dividing either.
Yeah, I think it's worth differentiating between the apostolic succession and the historic episcopate.
Differentiate that for me.
Well, because I believe, personally, that almost every ordained minister in any of the mainstream denominations can trace their ordination back to Christ.
Oh.
Okay. Back to Christ's ordination of Peter.
Oh, okay.
What?
I think you can tell I think of that.
You don't care about that, but I think you can. But that's different from the historic episcopate.
All right. How would you define the historic episcopate?
Well, I think the historic episcopate has to do with the things happening at the bishop or at the diocesan level.
Yeah, and that's why in a sense we're talking about the same thing, because it's the bishops tracing back to Peter.
Right, but I think pastors can trace back to Peter as well.
I think the whole thing is just silly, because when you are called as a pastor of a congregation, you are the bishop of your local community. And Luther ordained. I think it was Bubenheim. Am I wrong about that?
Right, but no, Luther was himself
ordained somebody.
Right, but Luther was himself ordained.
Yes, but he wasn't a bishop.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. For me, this is not the normal definition of the apostolic succession, but I think if you define the apostolic succession as just the laying on of hands, the passing of ordination from one pastor to another, then you can trace it. Then any mainline pastor should be able to trace their ordination all the way back to Christ telling Jesus to feed his sheep.
You mean Christ telling Peter to feed his sheep?
Thank you. To Christ telling Peter to feed his sheep.
I think the whole
e.g., the first
debate.
ordination.
Oh Lord, oh,
What?
I, I think the whole debate is just: are we really, not you and I, but I'm thinking like historically, or even when Lutherans and Catholics fight about this, I'm like, are we really making that big of a deal out of it? You have apostolicity when you preach the gospel. That's your apostolicity. It's the kerygma. It's the kerygma that has been handed down since it was first proclaimed that Christ is risen. That's your succession.
Right. I just think it's
You got it.
cool that you could trace my theological lineage from me all the way back.
Excuse me for sounding like a German at the moment, but don't base theological arguments off of what is cool.
I'm not. I'm not making a theological argument. I'm making a historical argument. I'm not
It's
assigning any.
even worse.
I'm not assigning any theological significance to the apostolic succession.
That's even worse. You can't make a historical argument based on what's cool.
No, I'm saying it's cool because it's historical.
Yeah, well, if you say so. I'm not convinced, but okay.
I like history, man.
I like history too. That's why I said you have the apostolicity in the fact that you preach the same kerygma.
Okay.
It's a difference in stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm stressing the proclamation, the oral word, the promise. Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not surprised by that.
and you're stressing the, I don't know if this is ecclesiology. It might be ecclesiology.
I do love me some ecclesiology.
I mean, I do too, as long as it's Christological ecclesiology. So I'm kind of showing my hand when I say that. I do love Vitor Vestela's book, The Church Event, Call and Challenge of a Church Protestant.
Right.
You know, Vitor had zero time for this, for the episcopate.
I'm sure.
Zero time. He sandblasted the historic episcopate. He's got an article about this in Dialogue where he calls it a gift of a Trojan horse. Now, let me be clear. I wouldn't go as far as Vitor. I think it's wonderful that the American Lutherans are in full communion with the Episcopalians. I think that's a real gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Episcopalians were very gracious to the ELCA, and I think the ELCA was ultimately very gracious to the Episcopalians. So I don't want to be accused of picking on the Episcopalians. My problem is in the more extreme versions of this, where it is, if you don't have some kind of apostolicity, your presiding over the sacraments is not valid. This is why, by the way, that when it comes to who presides and who doesn't, I'm trying to base my argument on good order. Because on the one hand, I don't like the complete chaos of anybody who feels like it on a Sunday afternoon can do it. And I also dislike even more the legalism of, if you don't have this episcopate, if you don't have the historic episcopate, you don't have a valid sacrament.
Right.
I mean, that is ridiculous. And I've met my fair share of folks who follow that.
Well, I think the ELCA leans too close to the second.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think maybe some factions in the ELCA maybe somewhat put a toe in that line, but I don't think so. But why do you think that?
Just because of my experience with it, of when they said we could and couldn't preside and all of that kind of stuff.
See, I'm still not sure that it's an argument about the episcopate. I think it's more the good order argument.
Right, but I think they go too far into the good order argument. I think they want too good of an order.
Do you think I'm going too far into the good order argument?
I don't know.
Hmm.
Honestly, we haven't talked in great depth about it before.
Well, I know that when I celebrated the Lord's Supper, that few times during my internship, I did have a couple of people tell me that if these were ordained persons, but they said to me, if I would not receive from your hand.
Then they're being Donatists.
Well, to which I responded, and if you were in the room, there would be no need to because you'd be doing it anyway.
Fair enough.
This is not a hard conversation, in my opinion. If there's an ordained person in the nearby radius, the ordained person does it. If there isn't, and it's an extenuating circumstance, a duly authorized person by the bishop does it. I don't see what's so hard about this.
I don't know. I think that if a body decides, so like if I were to I don't think you should have to be, I don't know. Like again, part of this is selfishness. Part of this is like me still struggling with my, I think, improper removal from the rostered roles.
Sure. No, that. So that's different again than the theological argument that I'm making at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm making an argument out of actually, believe it or not, out of concern for how people outside of the church would view those of us who are in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that they don't see utter chaos. That's all. Sorry, utter chaos and in and let's see, inflexible. Is it inflexible or unflexible?
Inflexible.
Inflexible legalism.
Yeah.
That's my real concern is for the people who might stumble in to worship services. What are they going to see? What are they going to hear?
Right.
And if it's, well, I'm the priest, so I get to preside on the one hand. And if it's, oh, well, we just sort of feel like random person today doing it. So come on up, Joe, your turn to do it. I wouldn't want that either.
Yeah.
Because I think both of those hinder the proclamation of the word, of which the sacrament is the visible expression.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my underlining what I'm trying to get at here. I'm not sure if that's what you think about that in light of your own experience.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out, to be honest.
Well, it just goes to show that you don't have to answer all the questions at one time, right?
Right. No, absolutely.
But I do think these questions matter in terms of the pandemic that we're living through, where we're being asked, or asked is too weak, where we're being directed to not have to not have the Lord's Supper. Sorry, I almost said the German word there. To not have the Lord's Supper. I think that these kind of um, uh, theological questions, but also questions of practice, are important.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, they are. It's been a huge point of discussion on some of the Facebook groups I've been a part of.
What are some of those groups?
Well, so like my internship group, the people I went to in through internship with, the class I went through internship with, we have a private group that we talk about these
You
things
still
with.
keep in contact all these years later?
I mean, it's only 6 years later.
Oh, it's been 6 years since your internship? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we still keep in contact. We all went through seminary together.
Well, I still keep in contact with the people that I went through, the 3 seminaries that I was at, together as well, but not in any kind of an internship group.
Yeah.
You know me, I have an identity crisis because I never know whether to say, was I in seminary? Was I in... I never know how to categorize that.
Yeah. Anyway, but no, we I mean, in particular, because we all went through such a traumatic experience in seminary, a number of traumatic experiences in seminary together, from the closure of the housing halls to an attempted suicide by a member of our Greek class.
Now that I didn't know about.
Yeah, all kinds of things that we like each other or dislike each other. We want to stay in contact with each other.
Sure, sure. Yeah, a majority of the people that I'm in contact with on Facebook are connected with the Lutheran seminaries and now with Tübingen.
Right, but we've
And then
created.
the
Sorry, go
last
ahead.
group is undergrad. Oh, sorry, no, just the last group is my undergrad, and then out from that other folks. But
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, but so we have an internship group where we share resources or thoughts or things like that, and I just posted there today, and I posted this in our Discord group as well. This author has made some of his stuff available free online, including the Holy Bible abridged beyond the point of usefulness. And so we share things like that with each other, little funny biblical resources and stuff.
The Holy Bible abridged beyond the point of usefulness.
Yeah, so it's like one or two sentences for every book in the Bible. Genesis is God made everything, but humans keep screwing it up. Some Jews moved to Egypt, which seemed like a good idea at the time.
Oh God.
That's Genesis.
I can't decide if I would want to file that under why was this published, or if that's the funniest thing I've heard in the last week.
Porque no los dos.
Yeah, so these contextual questions are have been very interesting to me, particularly around how pastors are responding to not having the Lord's Supper every week.
Yeah.
Now, I'm in a church now, because I'm in Tübingen, that has Abendmahl once. There, I finally said the German word, by the way. Sorry.
It's all right.
I've been trying to do that for the last 10 minutes, and finally that one just came out. That has the Lord's Supper only once a month.
Wow.
So there isn't that, because Württemberg, historically, I may have said this before, is Lutheran by preaching, but Reformed by liturgy.
Right.
So it's the synthesis of Johannes Brenz and that never-ending politician. Sorry, that's probably what Luther would have called him. I should be more fair to him. Martin Butzer. And so we only have this once a month, and it's gotten me to see in the last almost year, by the way, it'll be a year on April 7th since I moved to Germany. It's gotten me to see the value that we don't need to have the Lord's Supper at every service. That services of the Word are just fine. And some of this chaos around can we have it, can't we have it, who can preside, who can't preside, that might be solved by these services of the Word. And I think the push toward making Lutherans more Catholic in America, capital C, that has been going on for about 40 years, maybe could use a little bit of a different corrective by saying, particularly in times like this, no, we're going to abstain from the sacrament now.
But why abstain? That's my question. Why abstain? I think you have to have a reason to abstain. I think now is a good reason to abstain.
I do too.
But I think just because we don't want to look Catholic is not a good reason to abstain.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I may be sounding like saying, I don't want us to look Catholic. I don't mean that. But, I mean, we can learn from the notion of churches like the Lutherans here in Württemberg, where it's not every week. Um, but I do wonder if my concern with the push in American Lutheranism 40 years ago, it began about 40 to 50 years ago. And maybe actually that's incorrect because really that ought to be dated back to Vatican II. My concern with that is takes the focus off of proclamation. Or I shouldn't say it takes, it could run the risk of taking the focus off of proclamation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but I don't know, you're the one who went to Luther Seminary. I would think this for your MDiv, I would think this would resonate with you.
I mean, we did. I think they did the Eucharist at every. No, they did Eucharist at Wednesday chapels, but they did it every week at Luther.
Yeah, we did it every week at PLTS. We did it every week at Luther. When I was there, we did it every week at LSTC. It's not. It's not that. By the way, I do find it interesting that you call it Eucharist.
That's an old habit.
Yeah.
From my Episcopalian days.
Yeah. I tend to say, at least when I'm saying it in English, the Lord's Supper. Although Heiliges Abendmahl is also preferred. That's what's in the German edition of the Augsburg Confession, actually. Holy evening meal.
Right. Oh, that's nice.
But the reason I'm saying that I would think this might resonate at Luther Seminary is Luther Seminary was not, maybe at least until recently, known as that liturgical of a seminary.
That's very interesting. I would classify it as a fairly liturgical seminary from my experience.
Really?
Because there was some divide there when I was there, but we were taught a very liturgical worship style in our in our worship classes.
So that had changed then. That had shifted because from the outside the reputation was Luther was conservative and low church.
I would say that'd probably be more true of Wartburg now.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about that, but I admit in my own arguments a minute ago about the Lord's Supper, it was not as liturgical of an argument.
No.
The pastors here, at least where I go and in general, although I have seen them wear albs and stoles, but not where I go, they wear black academic gowns.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we wore, even if you were assisting with communion at Luther, you wore an alb.
I can't remember if the assisting ministers wear albs in the Stiftskirche or not. I don't think so. Maybe I'll look the next time I actually go.
The presiding minister would wear an alb and a stole, and the assisting students would wear albs.
Oh, no. Nope. Nope.
That's how it was done at Luther.
Yeah. So it's and I remember that when I was at Luther as well.
Which I find, so here's my weird mix, right? When I would preside, one of the churches I was at didn't have air conditioning, so I didn't wear my alb in the summer.
Oh,
which is my preferred.
I'm groaning because of not having air conditioning. But anyway, Sorry, go ahead.
Which again, this would be my preferred year round if they allowed it. If the churches I were at had allowed it, which would be to wear my clerical shirt and a stole.
Yeah, and I prefer the academic gown. I always preach in my academic gown.
But do you wear a stole with your academic gown? For me, that's one of the interesting questions here. Well, you're not ordained, so you don't get a. If you were ordained, would you wear a stole?
No, it depends on where I was ordained. If I was ordained in the States, probably. If I was ordained here, no, I would wear the black robes that all the other pastors wear.
Huh.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't wear the. That was very Lutheran, by the way. The black robe. This is not the Geneva gown necessarily of Calvin.
Right.
Yeah, I would probably. You want to signify. So there. I guess this is a liturgical thing for me. I want to signify that the stress is on the proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's. So it's interesting because I'm not particularly low church, but I am kind of making one of those arguments at the moment. So you and I are both mixes.
Yeah.
In North Germany, by the way, from what I've heard, in northern Germany, maybe even in Bavaria, I'm not remembering, they will wear albs and stoles and chasubles and all that.
Yeah.
But not in Württemberg.
Now, the real question is, would you wear your preaching bands with your black academic robe?
Of course. You even have to ask that question?
Absolutely.
You mean the white? You mean the white ribbon things?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. That's what everybody wears.
Really?
Here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know. What I don't know is if you wear that if you're not ordained. So I had to find that out because I actually would like to preach sometime if able to. And so I'd have to find out if you only wear that if you're ordained or if you wear it if you're preaching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how all that works, but what I do back home is in the States. When I preach, I wear my MDiv gown.
Yeah.
And that's what I preach in, with the hood and all that good stuff.
Right.
A scandal to Anglo Catholics everywhere, I'm sure, but
I'm sure.
You can guess how much I care.
I know.
And only because for me the stress is again about promise. Promise and proclamation. Note how surprised Peter is at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I find them overly formal.
Really? But you want to wear a stole and an alb? Oh no, you just want to wear a stole.
I just want to wear a stole.
Why the stole, by the way?
It's symbolic.
Of Christ washing the disciples' feet, or what?
No, it's the yoke. It's the yoke Christ has put upon us.
Interesting. I didn't even know that. Who came up with that idea?
I don't remember. I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, wow.
I just remember learning that.
I think next time you and I preach, we ought to preach like Baptists in our suits and ties.
No, never. Never.
Why not? I would do that.
I hate ties.
Oh, well, I hate ties too, but yeah. Well, hopefully we have solved some of the world's problems, said completely tongue-in-cheek. And hopefully we have, though in a more serious manner, given something for food for thought around sacraments and worship in this time where a virus is on the loose.
Yep.
And I encourage everyone to have a look at Luther's lovely document, Whether One May Flee from a Deadly Plague. I think you can find it online. And stay healthy. Stay healthy. Bleiben Sie gesund, auf Deutsch.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay safe out there.
Yes, and until next week, I'm Brach Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this is your friendly neighborhood Lutheran Theology, almost live-streamed podcast, Stumbling Block.
Stumbling Block is a production of Silver Turkey Studios. Our Patreon producer is Ben Dittman, our executive producer is Peter Clark, and our executive director is Brach Jennings. Our theme music is by Mirrors for Windows, and we are hosted by Podbean. We can be reached by email at stumblingblockpodcast@gmail.com. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/stumblingBlock. And as always, thank you for listening.